First of all, thank you for having me here. It's great that I have this opportunity to talk to you about Russia, about my decision that I took, and about all the situation that we have now in our country. I think the most important thing I want to begin with, that Russia now is such a country where the main quality to fight with the system, the unjust system that exists there, is to be brave and to fight your own fear. So all my campaign, which I'm doing now, is actually about fighting with fears, with very different fears. Because, you know, when I came out, of course, there was a fear that everyone will ridicule me and say, you know, it's funny, a blonde girl from TV shows tries to challenge Putin. Ha ha ha. In this case, I will laugh with those people too, because, you know, this fear of being ridiculed should not rule us, in my opinion, because this is the beginning of any protest, of any initiative. As you all know, the famous saying, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they hate and try to attack you, and then they build monuments to you. So I don't want any monuments, although there are already people doing something like this in Russia, which is quite weird. But I decided for myself that when they will ignore me, I will ignore them, and I will speak with my audience. I will speak with people who really want change in Russia. And this is the people in whom I trust, and in whom I trust on those elections, for them to come and to give their vote, not for me, but for the protest, for the idea of the change, which is so important for my country. When they laugh, I will laugh with them, and let us laugh together so that it will make them angry. And then they will attack me, which of course will happen. I will have my bodyguards because I'm not that brave, but I will hire them to have them near me. But in the end, I'm not afraid, because I've been in political journalism for 6 years already. I know how it is in Russia. I know that going to president elections in Russia is not like going to any elections in Belgium or Netherlands. It's not just a political issues you are facing a real threat, and you should be ready for this. But I'm not afraid. And then they will want to build monuments. I would say that they should build it to the great man, Boris Nemtsov, who was murdered in Russia because of what he thought. And by his life and by his death, he proved what a great man he was. So, to speak about the situation now in Russia, I want to make it very clear that there is a great difference, which I want to stress, especially for those of you who are not Russian citizens, who don't have Russian passports, or who live here or study from different countries, that Russia is not Putin. Russia has many people who do not agree with what's going on. And to punish those people, in my opinion, is unfair. I know that our relations, the relations between Russia and European world, has changed a lot. And Russia, of course, did a lot for those bad changes. But not only Russia, you know, it always takes two to tango, as we all know. And it always makes two to quarrel also. So I think very important is this understanding that, if you remember, in the 90s, Russian people were so eager to embrace the European world after years of communist regime. It was such a fantastic festival of souls, of thousands of people in Russia, which wanted to be the part of this liberal world and which embraced the liberal values. So this was like really for them something very important. But what happened next? what those people saw on the screens of European TVs and from European leaders, they saw that they say we won the Cold War. Those leaders started saying that they won the Cold War, but that's not true. And that, of course, made a lot of Russian people feel bad and feel offended by European war, because it's Russian people who won the Cold War. It's my father who was one of the first Democrats in Perestroika time who won the Cold War. It was Yeltsin, the president of Russia, who won the Cold War then. It was Russian people, but not the leaders of the European world or America who won it, because this was our civil war. The same thing we can say now. I know that you here in Britain have very different views about what happened with Brexit. But one of the reasons why it happened at all, to my mind, is that many of the Britons tend to think of themselves as over-European, in a way, and that led to what happened here. But, speaking about Russians, many Europeans tend to think that we are kind of under-European, and this is not true. Even many Russian people think like this, of themselves, like they're some second-sort European people. That's not true. We are a huge nation, and we are the biggest European nation. Really, just this is where we stand. And of course that frightens a lot, and the things we do, some steps, even, you know, with leaders we don't approve, of course this can frighten off, and this makes those relationships very complicated. But, to my mind, and what I fight for, is to be Russia, European country, part of the European world, as it always is. And this is her place. So this is one of the main goals, and one of the main goals to come here and talk to you is to explain that Russian people want to change that very much. Especially young Russians, they want Russia to be open, not closed again. And that's why it's very, very important to divide sanctions against Putin personally, sanctions against those people who grab the power and hold it for 18 years running, and against people who want to live in an open world, who make innovations, who want to travel, who want to study in Oxford actually. And that got much more complicated for Russians, and I know that. And I have many cases that also became a kind of a problem. So this is in my opinion, is not the right thing to do towards a big European country with many people wanting embrace these liberties and these values. So I think this is a very important goal, and I go for those elections not because I'm a crazy young woman and I know that, you know, I will win Putin on those elections. Maybe I will lose, and my chances are really minimal. But if we start today, if we in my country believe in those changes and start them today, I'm quite sure that in 6 years' time, for the next presidential elections, we can really create a very strong party, a party of young people, of people wanting these changes. And this would be a huge force for the future to change the situation in Russia, and then with international relations here all over the world. So this is my main goal. I will do anything I can to go there and show how many people want those change. I know and I believe there are millions of them. And I will fight until the last patron, until, you know, all I did will be there. So I hope it will work out, and thank you for your attention.